Let's upcycle this olive oil tin into a fun planter for the garden. First, gather your materials. Then add tape around all of the upper edges of the tin. This will help cut smoother lines and leave the tin with less marks. Make sure the tape is fully stuck to the tin, especially around the edges. A moment for my royalty-free background music. Next, cut the top off with a can opener. This can be the hardest part. The rounded corners will often be the trickiest. You may need to cut around the corners multiple times while applying force to the can opener. While I'm not using gloves in this step, you may want to consider doing so. Some of the edges can be sharp. Please be careful during this step and take the precautions you feel necessary. Empty out any remaining oil. You'll be surprised how much is still in there. Of course, be sure to save the oil for later use. I often find there are still some marks or sharp areas, especially around those tricky corners. I like to try and straighten it out with pliers the best I can. Next, let's give our tin a little wash with soap and water. Be careful during this step, especially if you have any sharp corners. We will add tape later to cover those sharp areas. Now we need to make some drainage holes. Simply just take a nail and a hammer and make a few holes around the bottom of the tin. Now it's time to plant. I like to use a container soil mix like Pro Mix. I also add some of my own worm castings and perlite, as this helps with water retention in containers. Be sure to thoroughly mix all those elements so the soil has a consistent texture. I find the old standby of hand mixing to be the easiest. Now let's add our soil to the tin. I like to fill all the way to the top, especially knowing that over time the soil line will settle. I propagated this broken micro tomato stem in water, and now I'll carefully add the roots to the soil. I try to keep the bottom leaves from touching the soil, as this helps with the overall health of the plant. In just under a month, that little micro tomato already has blooms. But we still have to add a protective layer of tape over those sharp edges. Some decorative tape will really make your upcycled planter look amazing. This micro tomato is called Orange Hat, and it reaches 6 to 9 inches in height, which makes it perfect for containers. Here's another tin I've had for several years. You can see how the bottom does eventually become rusted. It doesn't affect the plant, but you may want to add a saucer on the bottom of the tin so your surfaces are protected. And lastly, be sure to give your new plant lots of light and water. I personally love how these tins look like a vintage piece of art on my deck. I hope this project inspires you to reuse before buying new. It's so rewarding to be creative and rethink what an item truly can be. Thanks for joining me today with this fun upcycle. Be sure to follow along for more upcycles, gardening, and all things sustainable on this side of the internet.